Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then welcome to my channel. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you can watch future videos with me and Murders and Chill. So as a true crime lover, I have seen many cases that were just truly disturbing, and this is one of them. Now, before I go into it, I have to let you know that this man is a demon. He is a monster. He is a disease of a person. And before I go into his crimes, I do want to give a trigger warning. This video does include children, and it also includes SA, sexual assault. Also, I'll be using SA rather than saying the R word, because not okay on YouTube's. But man, this case, I swear I am going to try to give this case justice because it is so awful. It is just, oh God, watching this documentary on Netflix about the NightStalker is just pure terror, and I am going to go into it now. And first off, there is a woman by the name of Esther Petshar, I think is how you say her name. She was on her lunch break at the Salvation Army. She was just looking around trying to see, what's what kind of thing, And she picked up a black hat that had AC/DC on it, the band AC/DC. She didn't know what it was and didn't really care about it, so she put it back. And a man came around her, looked at her, gave her this chilling grin, and picked up the hat and left. And she was just like, she had chills for the rest of the day, as anyone would. And on her way home, she was getting on the freeway, and this man got in a car and met up with her on the freeway and just gave her this crazy killer clown grin with some nasty ass teeth. So he saw her, smiled, and then he took off. And, luckily she did go to the cops about this. Later on that night, a call was placed to the cops to report a murder. And the cops get there, the garage door is open, and the first thing they see on the ground is an AC/DC black hat. Can you say circumstantial evidence? Anyway, as they walk further in, they see blood spatter all over the ground leading into their door toward the condo. And like I said, there's blood everywhere. They go into their home and it is just a bloodbath. And there is blood on the floor, blood on the phone. And they go into the kitchen and they see Dale Okazaki lying dead on the kitchen floor, just in a pool of her own blood. And she has groceries all around her. She was probably just holding groceries, about to put it on the counter, and then when everything happened, everything just dropped. And what's crazy to me is that her roommate actually came across the NightStalker first. He came into the garage and saw her, and he had the gun out, and he tried to shoot her, but she did this, a defensive stance, and she had her keys with her because, she just gotten out of her car and was in the garage. She put it over her face, and the bullet deflected off of the key. A miracle. I mean, unfortunately, with the bullet, it's still had force. So the force actually kicked the roommate, Maria Hernandez, on the ground. And she was just kind of there, and he moved over, and that's when he went in there to see the roommate, Dale. But Maria was just kind of like, okay, I need to get out of here, and I'm worried about my roommate, Dale. So she runs to the very front of the home, and she comes in through the front door because she thought that he was going to try to come after her and run to the front door through the garage. But they ended up meeting up next to each other. While she was running, she heard a gunshot, which was the gunshot that killed Dale Okazaki. They came face to face, And I was just thinking as I was watching this Netflix documentary, this is it. He's going to shoot her too. And she actually got very brave. She told him to his face, "What, are you going to shoot me again?" kind of thing. This woman was brave, and he just looked at her very calm, and he walked away. She survived. I feel so bad for her though, because not only did she have to go through that trauma, she lost probably one of her closest friends. I mean, it's your roommate. This is someone you live with, the person you see every day. And now you have to see her on the floor dead. It's awful. So when the cops were called, they ended up taking care of Dale's body, looking around for circumstantial and forensic evidence, forensic science, and they took Maria Hernandez to the hospital because, she fell on the ground from the force of the shot. And they asked her to give a description of the NightStalker. So she, gave the full-on description of what he looked like. They got a sketch artist to go ahead and, get a full-on picture of what this guy looked like, which, great, that works. It's a good start. The same day, about a mile away from Dale and Maria's home, about 40 minutes later, there was actually a woman by the name of Tai Liamu who was yanked from her car and was shot in the chest by this NightStalker so he could go ahead and steal her car. This poor woman, all she was doing was driving. That's it. She didn't do anything to anybody. It's so unfair. They did find out that this victim was shot with a .22 caliber gun, which is good to get the bullets, because of forensic science. But unfortunately, with .22 caliber guns, there are thousands of .22s out there in the world. So it's really hard to go ahead and match with a specific gun and, just try to find the evidence they need to catch this guy. He's killed 2 people already. This is one night. I'm not even done. There are so many victims of this case, and I'm just going to say right now, I'm going to try to get as many people as I can just talked about, but I was so overwhelmed with the amount of people that this awful human being killed. He's not even a human being, he's a monster, and if I have missed someone, I truly apologize. And if I have said someone's name wrong, I apologize. But I just feel like the stories that I am able to collect, I want to tell to the world to let people know that these were real people. These were people who did not deserve to die. And these people were victims, and I'm sorry again if I have missed anybody. I will do the best I can, honestly. Next, on May 27th, 1985, a man and woman were shot at their home, and the husband was shot first with a .22, but then, this is heartbreaking, the NightStalker went in, sexually assaulted the wife, and tied her up and stabbed her above the vagina, and he cut out her eyes. A horrifying monster. Everyone needs to know the crimes he committed, because he does not come out good in the end, and people need to know he is where he was supposed to be. At the crime scene, though, they were able to recover a footprint in the beds of the flowers. Forensic science. And they were able to analyze it, and they found out that it was a men's size 11.5. Next, this isn't a murder, but this is a story about how sick this man is. I could not, because in the documentary, a woman who is so brave, her name is Anastasia Hornes. I think I'm saying her last name right. If not, I apologize. When she was 6 years old, she was taken by the NightStalker in his car, driven away, and he made her get in a duffel bag, and he brought her into, I believe, his home, and there he sexually assaulted this 6-year-old girl. What a horrifying, ugly, disgusting man. He's awful just generally for murders, but when you involve children, it's almost 5,000% worse. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion, but he just is a sick fuck and deserves to die. I'm sorry, but at this point, he deserves to die. Luckily for this girl, who's now a woman, but she was told to get back in the duffel bag, which she did, and the NightStalker took her to a gas station and told her to go into the gas station and call 911 so her parents could come pick her up. I don't know if you can see my cat, but here she is, being adorable, wanting attention. Her name is Luna. But we're going to continue on with this case, even though she just is not having it. But we will continue. Later in the year 1985, things were just getting worse and worse. There were 13 murders and 43 crimes. There was sexual assault, there was robbery, there is battery, and he drew pentagrams all over the walls, and it just, sick fuck of a man, just ugly, God, such a horrible man. Again, I'm going to attempt to list all of the names of the victims. This is very hard because there was just so many victims, and I'm just hoping that I'm, like I said, doing this video justice and getting as many names as I can, because you need to know who these victims are, because this NightStalker is a truly awful person, and we need to go ahead and tell you the intensity of what he has done in order for you to understand his sentence toward the very end and how justified it is. On May 14th, 1985, a man by William Doyce was shot and killed, and his wife, Lillian, was sexually assaulted and tied up with thumb cuffs. Weirdest thing I've ever heard of. I've never heard of anyone doing anything like this before, so when I initially first watched this, I thought it was something like I had heard wrong, or, just I had to rewind the documentary just to make sure I heard it right. And it is just crazy that he did things like this with thumb cuffs. He used all kinds of weapons, knives, guns, tire irons, thumb cuffs, and just array of weapons to hurt these people. On May 29th, 1985, a woman by the name of Maybelle and her roommate, Florence Lane, were beaten. Maybelle was beaten to death with a hammer, and her roommate, Florence, barely made it out alive. And the cops showed up, and there was just nothing they could do for these women. I mean, they were elderly too. It's not like he has a pattern or a motive or anything. He is just out there to kill for no reason. And it just doesn't make sense that anybody could do this. Why? Next, on June 28th, 1985, a woman by the name of Mary Higgins was stabbed, and she had her throat slit. To have the last thing you see in this world be this man who slit your throat is just horrifying, and I will never stop feeling for these people. This world is so fucked up. I want to make people aware of this. I don't know. I just don't want people to go ahead and think everything is going to be fine all the time. You need to be on your guard, unfortunately, everywhere you go. Because people like this exist. You need to be on your guard. Women need to carry pepper spray, you need to carry tasers, you need to protect yourself and your children. In July of 1985, a woman by the name of Mary Cannon was also killed in the same way that Patty Higgins had been killed. Then on July 5th, 1985, he came into a room of a 16-year-old girl and he beat the living shit out of her with a tire iron. And later on, when she was interviewed, she said she remembers going to sleep and then waking up with blood all over her. He beat her so badly that she doesn't remember it. That is the intensity and the hate and anger that this man had for people. He was just the worst, to say the least. She ended up with 42 lacerations and skull fractures, and it's like she didn't even know how it happened. And it's just not fair. It truly isn't. Don't mind my cat. It's just Luna. She just wants attention. I'll keep going, because this isn't a smiling factor, but, you know, it's just kind of one of those things, like, you can't help but laugh in this video because of your cat. Anyway, now at this location, they actually got a woman by the name of Giselle from the Forensic Science Crime Lab, who was able to find a bloody footprint of the killer and fibers from the killer's gloves on the front door. So they're finally finding things and, you know, understanding and putting the pieces together that this is not a few people. This is one person. They have the same size 11.5 shoe, and it was analyzed. This type of shoe was an Avis shoe, and it was a black shoe because people have been describing him in other murders, so the cops already knew that this was a black 11.5 Avis shoe that they were looking for. And this is only one person, and they are sitting on some hard evidence there, so good to know. Again, I really am trying to go ahead and bring awareness to all the victims of the Night Stalker. If I have missed anybody, I truly apologize. However, in the documentary as well, there was mention that he actually could have been involved in other crimes as well that just weren't solved yet. So sometimes it's hard for me to even name all the people who were affected by this Night Stalker because there could be more. He was found for 43 crimes, but there could have been more. They're not sure. He was almost caught because he attempted to steal a woman and put her in his stolen car, but she got out, thankfully. And when he was driving again, he actually got pulled over by the cops for a traffic violation. And the cop at the time, you know, just didn't know about his situation and who he was and what was going on. And on the radio, as he was walking back to get his citation book, he was able to piece together the license plate of the stolen car and what the man looked like. And he turns around to go ahead and actually arrest him and bring him in. But unfortunately, Night Stalker already got back in his car and drove off. They were this close. But, you know, he's a slippery little thing. They later on found that stolen vehicle, but when it was found, the prints weren't taken for various reasons. I can't even go into it. It's on that documentary. If you want to watch it, go ahead, but it was just, they couldn't do it for X, Y, and Z, and honestly, it's just a lot of excuses, and it's just maddening. Not necessarily the cop's fault who was working on it, the two men, Gil and Frank, and, you know, they're just trying to do their job and people are just in the way is basically what it is. The cops were getting afraid, the cops' families were getting afraid, and, you know, they're just lost. They feel like they don't know what to do, and it's a scary time. They're telling people to lock up their doors, and some people, you know, they're from the Midwest and they're just not wanting to lock their doors because they just never did. And unfortunately, the killer was looking for specific people who had their doors unlocked. because of people like him why everyone is scared of the world. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people. Next, a woman by the name of Joyce Nelson was killed. She tried to fight him off, but he actually ended up killing her, but then foot stomping on her as well. The awful person that he is. Well, you know what? Leave all the footprints everywhere you want, because it's just going to help our cause, because forensic science. At this point, there had been 5 murders in 10 days, and finally the media caught wind of it, and everything just went crazy. Everybody was aware of these murders now, and people are finally starting to listen and lock their doors and do what is being told from the police department, because there's no safe place. He is just going to anywhere he can, going to unlock doors, breaking into other people's homes, and just hurting these people, these innocent, wonderful people. And I just don't understand how a person like him can exist. They were finally able to actually get into that stolen car earlier that I had mentioned. And when they went in, they actually found a business card for a dentist. And the name, patient's name on the dentist card was Richard Mena. Interesting. Okay, so they go to the dentist. They interview the dentist, and they basically let them know the whole situation. And they had been watching out for him for a little while, because apparently he was supposed to be coming back to the office because he had an impacted tooth, and it was just going to really start hurting him. Honestly, dude, why even bother? Your teeth are ugly as fuck. So they hung around to go ahead and just kind of keep an eye out, but unfortunately the cops were told that they can't waste money and they can't have them go ahead and wait around at a dentist office. Ridiculous. So what they did was they put an alarm in the dentist office, and when he was going to show up, when he showed up in the office, they wanted the people from the dentist office to hit the alarm, so then that way they knew to, haul ass to get there to go ahead and arrest this guy. However, unfortunately, the alarm malfunctioned, so he had come in, got his dental work done, and he still wasn't caught. Gone again by this much. He is such a slippery little creep, and it's so sad that it took so long to be able to find him. It's just awful. On July 20th, 1985, a man and woman by the name of Vincent and Leila Needing, I think it's Needing, not Needling. Anyway, these pictures on the documentary will make anybody sick to their stomach. It was horrifying. Like I said, I have watched many videos and read many articles about awful people, and this man is one of the most awful people I've ever come across. It was not the cops' fault or anything, it's just maddening. On the same night he went into a couple's home, he shot the father and SA'd the mother, and also SA'd their younger son in front of her. This guy is such an asshole. I want to shove his face in a fire. He makes me so angry. Like I said, murders on anyone is the worst. But when you involve children, it's almost worse. It's always children and animals who are worse in my book. On August 6th, 1985, a man and woman by the name of Chris and Virginia Peterson were murdered. Chris and Virginia Peterson were both shot at, but Chris was able to just pull it together somehow and ran after the NightStalker like a badass. And it scared off the NightStalker. Gotta say, that's pretty cool. And with the bullets that were found, they were now a .25 caliber bullet with a red rim on the bullet itself. So he's now using a different gun. they got to keep an eye out for that as well. After all these murders, he was now labeled NightStalker in the papers. So the NightStalker is now seeing his work in the papers, and he's just proud. This sick fuck, I swear, I don't understand how people like this can live with themselves. I just don't. Next, on August 8th, 1985, a man named Elias Abawath was killed. His wife was sexually assaulted, and they were able to find the bullets again with the red primer. So he's using the same .25 caliber gun. So they're having to keep an eye out for that, because he's just leading them to each murder. And forensic science is just starting to go ahead and collect all this evidence to go ahead and point to him for when he is getting arrested eventually. We will get there. Moving on. He then went to San Francisco and committed more crimes. He actually went to a couple's home by the name of Mr. and Mrs. Pan, P-A-N, and he came in there and he shot the husband, SA'd the wife, and then he was just so disgusting. He masturbated on their carpets. He wrote pentagram symbols all over the walls, and he just destroyed their home. The home where they're supposed to be safe, a sanctuary from the world, and he just ruined everything. At this point, the San Francisco mayor got involved and put out a $10,000 reward for capturing this NightStalker. However, she did a dumb thing. She decided to go ahead and collect all the evidence that the police had and decided to just air it out to everyone, so everyone in the media knew what was going on. So now that the killer can go ahead and watch this and his handiwork, he knew to go ahead and make sure that anything that he had going on was gone. So, are you kidding me? The cops were pissed. I understand. I mean, she just fucked up the whole thing. So it was almost like they were back to square one, but they had to keep going. They had to find him with what information that they did have that wasn't already given out. Another couple on August 24th, 1985, they were shot. The husband was shot and the woman was sexually assaulted. And at this point, he decides to be so cocky and tell them that he is the NightStalker. He actually tells them this. And he's so confident in being so slippery that he's now just telling people who he is. What an idiot. With that crime, a witness actually saw the stolen car, and they were able to tell the cops what the car looked like and the license plate. So later on, they were able to find that car, and luckily from that car, they were able to go ahead and pull prints, forensic science, and have this on file for when they have future murders. Unfortunately, they're just looking for a way to get everything connected, because at this point, they don't even have a name. They have the name NightStalker. They don't have his name. So, unfortunately, they're having to just piece things together as they go. They had a tip line going, and they were getting thousands of calls, but they finally got a call from a woman who actually said on the phone, "I think my dad is friends with the NightStalker." And they ended up having to go see her. And when they met up with that woman, it was just starting to fall into place. She described the NightStalker to a T. She mentioned that she had a boyfriend by the name of Armando who knew him as well, so they had to hunt him down. And Armando just refused to go ahead and cooperate with the police. He was just saying, "Leave me alone, I don't know this guy," blah blah blah, being belligerent and stupid. And finally the cops, a few of them, started getting real mad, real impatient, and just done with his shit, because they knew he knew what was going on. And they just started a little bit of police brutality here, unfortunately. That shouldn't be an option, but unfortunately, in this case, they kind of hit him until he busted out a name. And the name of the NightStalker was Richard Ramirez. Now that they have a name and now that they have prints, they are able to go ahead and find a picture of the man who was responsible for all of these crimes. Funny enough, he already had a record, but the record was very small. It had nothing to do with violence at all. Until now, obviously. Luckily, they were able to get this picture in the media so that way everybody knew what he looked like. So then that way, if anybody saw him, they could go ahead and just reach out to the cops. And things just went crazy from here. So he came back to Arizona because he went to see family, and he came back. When he got off the Greyhound, he was walking around. He went into a liquor store and he saw just pictures of him all over the newspapers, and people were starting to look at him and they knew who he was, and he ran and got on a bus and just tried to, get away from everybody. But then a man who was on the bus pulled the little string in order to go ahead and get off. He went ahead and got on his telephone and called up the cops and said, hey, the NightStalker is now on the bus. So the chase is on. So they're following that bus and they are just trying to, get him off this bus so they can go ahead and pretty much seize him, capture him, because the people around are pissed. Mob mentality, huh? And he gets off the bus. He is now trying to steal a car from a woman, but he had to be run off because everyone in that town rallied against him and blocked him and made him stay where he was while they called the cops to come get him. An entire neighborhood caught him. I am so proud of these people. I am. They were just able to stop all of the crimes and murder, and they were able to stop everything, and it's just wonderful. However, few people obviously were mad, rightly so, and they kind of beat the shit out of him with a tire iron, and they had scratches and they had all kinds of stuff. Then the cops had to show up and basically get him in the cop car and, away from all these people, even though he was a monster of a human being. They had to get him in the cop car and then bring him to the jail. Now for a little bit on Richard Ramirez. Well, one, he's awful. But two, he was born on February 29th, 1960 in the town of El Paso, Texas. He did have a rough childhood growing up. This doesn't excuse any of his crimes. Just saying that right now. But I do want to say there was some issues growing up in his life. Growing up, if he got in trouble with his father would tie him to a cross in the cemetery and leave him there overnight. What a oh, that's horrifying. And then later on, when he was very young, he watched his cousin kill his wife in front of him. Seeing things like this, it's putting things probably in his mind saying that this kind of behavior is okay. And it is not, obviously. He was a thief. He was an outcast. He did drugs, which makes sense as to why his nasty ass teeth look the way they do. He looks like Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. This dude is just ugly. He had actually gone to the libraries just to look up books on torture. This guy is 50 Shades of Psycho. Oh my God. And next, they didn't have a trial yet. They had to question him and just kind of figure out more about him. Because when you have killers, you do want to speak with them and just kind of see what their inspiration was or why they did things like this for future cases. He had told them that he had inspiration from the Hillside Strangler and that he was really into Ted Bundy, these awful people. And he was so excited because when they went to the prison, he ended up being in the same cell as the Hillside Strangler. Oy vey. He ended up getting put in lineups for other crimes as well, and he was found guilty in many other crimes, which wasn't helping his cause. And good. You deserve to go down for everything you've ever done. And what was even more disgusting is he had groupies. He had women who would send him letters and naked pictures and all kinds of stuff. And why? Have some self-respect, ladies. Like, this isn't smart. And in the documentary, there was actually a woman who called them the dumbest bitches ever. I'm sorry, I laughed maybe a little bit too hard there, but we're gonna move on. Every time he was transferred from the jail to his court appearances, they had to have maximum security because there would be mobs outside the courtrooms, and there was rumors of people wanting to shoot him during his transport. So they had to really just take care of him, make sure he didn't get hurt. Then, 3 years later, on January 30th, 1989, he finally went to court, and there was 140 witnesses who were going to speak out against him. I cannot believe that case took so long. It doesn't make sense to me. Then, on September 20th, 1989, he was found guilty and sentenced to death. Good job, everybody. Good job. There was justice in the world. Oh, and I forgot to mention, too, when he was in the court, he would show his hand to the jury with pentagrams on it. And whenever he would be walking back and forth between the cell and court, he would say weird things like, "I'll see you in Disneyland," or "I'm better than good and evil," and just weird ass shit. This dude is mental, crazy, not deserving of groupies. Girls, get better idols, as Bailey Sarian would say. However, instead of finishing up his sentence, on June 7th, 2013, he died in prison because of cancer. I feel bad for anyone who has cancer and feel wonderful for the people who have beat it and have been in remission, but he should have been able to stay in jail long enough to go ahead and get death by lethal injection, is my opinion. I'm glad that he was finally caught using forensic science, and it really helped the cops in a way to look out for future murders, and just knowing that forensic science was going to be a big help in finding more murders and get them off the street in a way as a silver lining. And I hope that all of the victims are now resting in peace now that their killer has been taken care of, basically. I wish I had been there for some of these people to try to save these people, especially the children, and none of them deserved this, and it is just heartbreaking that this awful man did what he did. And I'm hoping that these murders were more lessons for future cases in order to stop people faster. Well, that is the case of the NightStalker. I just want to say thank you for watching my video, and I hope to see you in my next one. But in the meantime, stay weird, be safe.